One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Carl Jung. Have you ever had a thought, a feeling, so strange or intense that you were almost afraid of it? A sudden flash of envy that burned you with shame? A surge of anger that seemed to boil up from nowhere? Or maybe a creative impulse so wild, so unconventional, you immediately shut it down as too weird or not me? We all have these moments, these hidden currents running deep beneath the surface of the person we try to be. And most of us, if we're being honest, spend our entire lives trying to ignore them, to push them down, to pretend they don't exist. But what if I told you that this darkness, this hidden, disowned part of yourself, isn't something to be feared or defeated? What if it's the very wellspring of your most profound creativity, your deepest authenticity, and your greatest power? Tonight, we are going on a journey into the shadow. We're going to explore what it is, why we run from it, and most importantly, how we can use the transformative power of art to not just face it, but to integrate it, and in doing so, create from a place of radical wholeness. Demon. So what do I see this shadow really? The term comes from the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung. He described it as the unknown, dark side of the personality. Think of it like this. Your conscious mind, the person you show to the world, is a brightly lit room. You know where all the furniture is. You keep it clean. It's presentable. The shadow is the basement. It's the place where we shove everything we deem unacceptable, unworthy, or inconvenient about ourselves. It's not just the negative things that get locked down there, though that's a big part of it. Your rage, your jealousy, your greed, your laziness, your insecurities, all the traits that society, your family, or you yourself have labeled bad. You learned early on that being angry is disruptive, or that being sad is a burden, so you lock those feelings away. You want to be the good, happy, successful person living in that bright room upstairs. But here's the secret most of us miss. We also throw our gold into the shadow. Your untamed creativity that was dismissed as just daydreaming. Your fierce ambition that was shamed for being bossy. Your deep sensitivity that was labeled too emotional. Any part of your true, authentic self that didn't fit into the neat little box of who you were supposed to be gets banished to the darkness. Your raw power, your untamed sexuality, your righteous anger, your boundless joy, all of it can end up in the basement if you were taught to be afraid of its intensity. So here we are. We have this basement, this shadow, filled with all the parts of ourselves we've rejected. And most of the time, we just try to live as if it doesn't exist. We throw a heavy rug over the trapdoor, maybe slide a couch over it, and get on with our lives. But the shadow doesn't just disappear. It's a living part of your psyche. And when it's ignored, it starts to bang on the door. It seeps through the floorboards. It influences your life in ways you don't even realize. This is where things get personal. It's a concept called projection. When we refuse to own a part of ourselves, we unconsciously start seeing it in exaggerated form in everyone else. Have you ever met someone who just gets under your skin for no good reason? Someone whose very existence just irritates you on a fundamental level? Jung would say that person is likely wearing one of your projected shadows. Let's say you've suppressed your own ambition because you were taught it was arrogant. You've locked it away. Then a new colleague starts at work who is openly, unapologetically ambitious. They talk about their goals. They aren't afraid to promote their own wins. You might find yourself intensely disliking them, calling them a ruthless suck-up. In reality, their ambition is just rattling the lock on your own basement door, reminding you of the power you've disowned. The irritation you feel towards them is really the cry of your own caged ambition. This happens with everything. The person enraged by lazy people might be suppressing their own desperate need for rest. The person who constantly judges others' messy lives is often terrified of their own inner chaos. The things that trigger you most powerfully in the world are signposts. They are a map to the contents of your own shadow, written in the language of your emotional reactions. It's not about them. It's a message for you. But here's the twist, and this is where it gets really interesting. An unacknowledged shadow doesn't just make you judgmental. It actively sabotages your life, especially your creative life. That creative block you can't seem to break. It could be your shadow. It's the fear of being not good enough, a feeling you banished to the basement, now whispering that all your ideas are worthless. It's the suppressed rage that's quietly draining all your creative energy, leaving you exhausted and uninspired. An ignored shadow runs on autopilot. It creates patterns of self-destruction. It's the part of you that procrastinates on the one project you claim to love most. It's the part that picks a fight with your partner right before a major deadline. It's the part that convinces you to stay small and safe because it's terrified of the very brilliance you locked away with it. To create with freedom, you cannot have a civil war raging inside your own soul. You have to call a truce. You have to go down to the basement. And this is where art becomes our greatest ally. Art is the lantern we carry into the basement. Why? Because the shadow doesn't speak English. It speaks in symbols, in feelings, in raw, unfiltered emotion, in bizarre images and ancient archetypes. You can't sit down and have a polite, logical chat with your inner rage. You can't reason with your deepest insecurities. Trying to think your way through the shadow is like trying to catch smoke with a net. Art, however, speaks the shadow's native tongue. A splash of angry red on a canvas. A dissonant chord in a piece of music. A monstrous character in a story. A wild, uninhibited dance in an empty room. These are the words of the shadow. Creating art provides a sacred space, a safe container for these powerful, often frightening energies to come out and breathe without causing destruction in your actual life. You can explore your deepest rage on a canvas without yelling at your family. You can process your most profound heartbreak in a song without drowning in despair. The blank page, the empty canvas, the silent instrument, they don't judge. They are a mirror that simply says, "Show me." It invites the monster out of the basement, not to be slain, but simply to be seen. And in the act of being seen, of being given form and color and sound, something magical happens. The monster begins to transform. The process of integration begins. So, how do we actually do this? How do we use art as a tool for shadow integration? It's a process. And it starts not with talent or skill, but with courage and curiosity. Step 1 is simple: acknowledgement. It's learning to listen for the rattle on the basement door. It's a practice of mindfulness. When that flash of irrational anger hits you, don't push it away. Don't immediately judge it or project it. Just for a moment, be still and acknowledge its presence. Say to yourself, there's anger. When you feel that wave of jealousy or insecurity. Just notice it. Hello, insecurity. I see you. You're not agreeing with it. You're just acknowledging that a part of you is trying to speak. Step 2 is non-judgmental expression. This is the key. The goal here is not to create a masterpiece. I will repeat that. The goal is not to create a masterpiece. The goal is to create a mess. The goal is to be honest. This is where so many of us get stuck. We think, I can't paint my anger. I don't know how to paint. Or I can't write about my jealousy. I'm a bad writer. That's your ego, the manager of the upstairs room, trying to stay in control. Give your ego a different job. Tell it, your only job right now is to facilitate. Just hold the pen, just move the brush, just play the ugly notes. Grab a cheap notebook and just scribble. Pick up charcoal and make angry, jagged lines on a huge sheet of paper. Turn up the music and let your body move in whatever strange way it wants to. Don't think, just translate. Translate the raw feeling into physical form. Give the monster a voice, no matter how incoherent or ugly it sounds. Underneath here. Let's use a real example. Imagine you're consumed with envy over a friend's success. It's a vile, uncomfortable feeling. You've acknowledged it. Now, you sit with a journal. You don't write, I should be happy for my friend. That's your ego. Instead, you let the shadows speak. You write, I hate them. I want what they have. I want them to fail. You write the ugliest, most forbidden thoughts. This isn't for anyone else to see. It's a private conversation. It's an exorcism on paper. Or if you're an artist, you could take a canvas and use colors you associate with that envy. A sickly green, a bitter yellow, a resentful black. You don't try to paint your friend. You paint the eye feeling. You slap the paint on. Let it drip. Scrape it with a palette knife. You are giving that toxic energy a place to go, a form to inhabit that is outside of your own body. You are emptying the poison. This brings us to the third, most transformative step: dialogue and integration. After you've created your mess, your honest expression, you don't just throw it away. You sit with it. You look at it. You listen to it. You become a curious archaeologist of your own soul. You ask it questions. What are you trying to tell me? What part of me are you? What do you need? Looking at that journal entry filled with hate, you might realize the voice isn't just envy. Underneath, there's a profound sadness. It's the voice of your own neglected potential. The monster of envy was just a terrified guard at the door of a deeper feeling, grief for your own dreams. The envy isn't telling you to destroy your friend. It's screaming at you to pay attention to your own life. Looking at that angry green and black painting, you might see not just rage, but a tremendous amount of energy. Power, drive. It's the ambition you were taught to suppress. And you realize this energy isn't evil. It is just energy. It can be destructive when ignored, yes. But what if you could harness it? What if you could channel that same intensity, not into resenting someone else's success, but into building your own? This is integration. It's not about destroying the shadow. It's about shaking its hand. It's about bringing the monster up from the basement and giving it a job. You acknowledge its existence. You listen to its distorted wisdom, and you integrate its energy back into your conscious life. The rage becomes passion. The fear becomes prudence. The sadness becomes empathy. The envy becomes a catalyst for action. You become more whole. Unti, yanan, usai, onashi, godis, koranu, kanso, bargalonga. Think of the great artists. Francisco Goya, late in life, deaf and disillusioned, painted his black paintings directly onto the walls of his home. Horrifying images like Saturn devouring his son. He wasn't painting for a gallery. He was in a raw, uncensored dialogue with his personal and collective shadow. The horrors of war, the fear of madness, the inevitability of death. He was painting the basement. And in doing so, he created some of the most powerfully honest art in history. Oh, Gave. Frida Kahlo painted her physical pain, her heartbreak, her identity, with brutal, beautiful honesty. Paintings like The Broken Column or The Two Fridas are direct communications from her shadow. She didn't paint pretty pictures to escape her suffering. She painted her suffering to understand it, to own it, to integrate it into her very being. Her art was seen, her integration. That's why it pierces through time and connects with us so deeply. We recognize the truth of her conversation with her own darkness. But here is the most crucial part, the real secret that changes everything. The shadow doesn't just contain pain and monsters. Remember the gold? The basement is also a treasure vault. When you begin this process, you don't just neutralize your demons. You liberate your captive gods. You unearth your most potent, authentic, and unique creative gifts. Your authenticity is in the basement. Your unique voice is in the basement. The very things that will make your art and you unforgettable are waiting in the dark. The parts of you that you deem too weird, too loud, too sensitive, too much, that's not your flaw. That's your artistic fingerprint. That's your style. Michelangelo's terribilità, his awesome and terrifying power. Van Gogh's overwhelming emotional intensity. Emily Dickinson's strange, reclusive genius. These were not well-adjusted people living only in the brightly lit room. They were people who had an intimate, ongoing relationship with their shadow, and they channeled that wholeness, not just the polite, acceptable parts, into their work. This journey is not an easy one. It requires a specific kind of courage. Not the courage to slay a dragon, but the courage to sit with it, to listen to it, and to ask it to dance. It means being willing to be messy, imperfect, and brutally honest with yourself on the canvas or the page. It means choosing authenticity over approval, every time. But the gold in the shadow isn't just about becoming a better artist. It's about becoming a more whole human being. When you stop wasting energy suppressing half of who you are, that energy is freed up for living. You become more compassionate because you recognize the shadows in others. You become more courageous because you faced your own inner demons. You become more authentically you because you finally called all the lost parts of yourself back home. So to bring it all together, we all have a shadow, a basement for the disowned parts of ourselves, both dark and golden. Ignoring it leads to projection, self-sabotage, and creative blocks. But art is the bridge. Through a process of acknowledging, expressing without judgment, and entering into a curious dialogue, we can integrate the shadow's energy. We transform its power from a destructive force into a creative one. We stop living a half-life, and we start creating from our wholeness. If this idea of exploring your own inner world resonates with you, consider subscribing for more journeys into the intersection of psychology, creativity, and philosophy. In our next video, we'll dive into a related concept, the anima and animus, the inner masculine and feminine, and how understanding them can revolutionize not just your art, but your relationships. I'll leave you with a soft question for the quiet moments. What is one shadow feeling? Envy, anger, fear, maybe even a secret ambition that you've noticed in yourself recently? And what is one small, private, creative act you could use to start a conversation with it? A doodle, a poem, a few chords on a guitar, a single journal entry? Share your thoughts below. There's no judgment here, only shared exploration. I genuinely love to read them.